fired up on a Thursday?
I am fired up on a Thursday. It's podcast 648. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. And it's a Thursday, January 5th, 2023.
All right. It's a good day. We got a little snow again.
First, you got more snow?
Yep.
We got nothing. We got absolutely nothing. We're getting colder, but listen, you can't complain. It's cold. It's winter. It's what you got to expect. But the sun is out, and that's really hard to beat. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful Thursday here in Overland Park, Kansas. Mike has got snow on the ground in Beloit. We hope you're all having a wonderful and fantastic Thursday and an awesome start to your year. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Sometimes very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as coaches and athletes ourselves, but also as human beings on this planet. We also talk a lot about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking at their very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the Ironman World Championships, the Boston Marathon, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that. Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Great community, fantastic people, wonderful resource. It really is a solid place with just solid people that have been around the block, that are just as experienced as the athletes we work with, from beginners and honestly not even beginners, people who are just thinking about doing a triathlon and kind of looking for a comfortable and encouraging place to get information that's not clouded with, Triathlete magazine marketing feeds and 8 ways to get this and $20,000 bike reviews. It's just, simple, actionable wisdom and advice from experienced people. So you can be a part of that community. It really is. It's an awesome resource and just a lot of great people in there. And we'll go in there about once a month and do a little bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, do our best to answer as many questions as we can get through that people have. And we'll make that the podcast for the day. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and it's an important one. And that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I spent a good portion of the night last night organizing our gear inventory, and so that's all ready. If you feel like supporting the podcast with some gear, that'd be a really nice way to start your Thursday or Thursday afternoon.
Thursday afternoon, yeah, you hit it, because I keep getting encouraged by our operations team manager to lead the podcast with gear and camps, and we just forget, because that's not really who we are, but we do. People are always looking for ways to support the podcast. It is a free podcast that we love and we'll do anyway, but if you're looking for a way to support us, support the community, or just want some awesome gear and swag, go to the website, check it out, click on the gear, and again, that is the best way to support us. Anybody can wear our gear. We get a lot of questions, but hey, can you wear C26 stuff around the team? Absolutely. Yeah. We have a team, but we are most importantly a community. We had an athlete ask this in the Facebook group last week. Goes, hey, what does C26 mean? And well, C stands for crushing, and the 26 atomic number for iron. But I think it's important to know that. But more importantly is it's kind of one of those things where the reason it's not named Mike and Robbie's coaching company is and we named it C26 because it can mean a lot of different things. It really is what about it, what it means to you. What does the community mean to you? What does the podcast do for you? So support it, and again, it's a great way to support us and spread the word. I think we ask for reviews for like 5 times a year. Most people do it like once a podcast and have ads, but that's just not us. That's not our vibe. We don't want to do it, and we prefer to keep it that way. So support us that way. If you're looking for camps to do next year, our triathlon camp in June is sold out, but we do have a few spots open for our Texas camp. It's in March. If you're doing an early season race, just want to get out of the winter, the cold, come on down, join us. It's an awesome camp. We did our first one last year, and it was a really great time. Looking forward to going back. And then we've got 3 spots left for our Wisconsin camp in August. So again, go to our website, check those out. And if you have any more questions about camps, C26operations@gmail.com is the place to go.
Yeah, and smash the like button.
Smash the like button.
And it C stands for crushing, but it could stand for community too.
Yeah,
And
culture.
we were talking about beforehand, but and we've been talking about a little bit on the last few podcasts, but we're not moving, but we're
we're
moving again. We're going. Where would we move? We'll talk about that later. But I was just thinking, we're really making an effort to be more inclusive to, sort of beginners and short course stuff. And we're working on some things with that. So keep that in mind. If you have friends out there who've been dabbling with the idea of getting into triathlon, or, somebody, who, might want to turn their life around a little bit, or maybe yourself, you're still kind of hanging around trying to get back in the sport, but maybe you want to think about something shorter than, it's not all about halves and fulls. And I know we get on that tip a lot, but, I think a lot of times just because that seems like the most confusing puzzle, but we have to remember that if you're starting, the puzzle of anything is really confusing. So we're going to kind of keep an eye on that and do some things more for people who are, looking to get in. And I just can't help but look around these days and see there's a lot of people that probably looking for something, And for me, it was when I started a Couch to 5K, and I won't forget that. And I don't want to say it saved my life, but damn near, because, when you're going down a train in life, the deeper, the further you get on that track, the harder it is to kind of turn around. So I always keep that front of mind. So I'm working on some things. It's sort of a personal passion for me to do that and work with people who are just getting in the sport, or, trying to turn things around. So just want to throw that out there because the community is important to us, and we want to help do better for the sport and for everybody that's touching it.
Yeah, that was honestly perfectly said. I mean, and that's always been the mission, right? It's for us to, when we first sat down in the coffee shop, in East Nashville, what was it, Portland Brew we sat down at? And,
upstairs at the quiet space.
Yeah, and figured out, we want to do this, and the goal is always to help people, and yeah, I think in the past our conversations always kind of go towards 70.3s and fulls, just because that's, it's always easier to talk about what you're currently going through, me training for 70.3s a lot, and you training for fulls. It's natural, but it's all confusing, right? And every distance is important. I think in order for the sport to grow in general, it's got to be all inclusive, and things have to change, and again, things changed today. They've officially announced that the men are going to go to Nice next year for the Ironman World Championship. So change is already happening. And honestly, I think sometimes you need something big like that in the Ironman community to kind of like slap people in the face, be like, hey, you know what? It's time to change. It's okay to change, right? And I think change is super scary for a lot of people. I had a topic for us today. I was going to talk about testing and go all data, but I had this quote that I thought about yesterday, just kind of going through, because again, it's the early part of the year. We've been talking a lot. We talked about before that we went live is like, my co-work space is bumping. I mean, like I've seen, there's like 80 people in here right now. It's nuts. And then you got people, really trying to start a new year, and people are excited and things happen, but it also means you're comparing things. And I read a great quote, and it was very simple. And I didn't read it. I was listening to a different podcast, and it was kind of a simple four words: comparison kills, complacency kills. And that is, it's true year round, right? And it's true for every athlete, but comparison kills and complacency kills, right? And complacency is I think one of the biggest things for athletes and coaches, right? Alike, that change is hard, right? And pushing yourself because to a different level to do different things is uncomfortable because you don't know. We always kind of like to, we even touched on it in a roundabout way in the last podcast, talking about being miserable with life, as we've all kind of just we'd rather predict that our day is going to go subpar, right, and not be what we want it to, but at least we know that, and we just kind of settle for it, right? Then taking a risk, taking a leap, having faith, and having no fear and doing something different, but I don't really know how it's going to go, right? And so people stay complacent, right? Coaches are complacent. Athletes are complacent. You don't want to do anything different. You hate, believe me, it's type A triathletes. They hate change. They hate it. They want predictability, and I get that. And I'm the same way. Like I love predictability. You're the same, right? I don't like surprises. Hate them. But then comparison kills, right? And I think one of the most common things you see this time of year is athletes. They don't just compare their lives, their training, their everything. They compare goals, right? And you get swept up in other people's dreams and goals of everything in life, and then you make those your goals for really no reason, but because you feel like you should have them, right? Because Betty Sue down the street has them, or Tommy Triathlon, 2 blocks down has the same thing. You're like, I should do that too. Like, really? Why? Like someone else's. It's like the same thing with comparison on on social media. Right? You're comparing everyone's fake best day to your average life, because that's all they're doing. Right. And I think it's important this time of year to remember those two things: complacency kills and comparison kills. Right. Which I think is a fine line as they kind of intersect with each other, in that you compare yourself with other people and what they're doing, but also comparing what you've accomplished or what you want to do to what other people have done or say they will do. And I think that, again, a lot of it goes back to just the fact that everything we do now can be publicized, right? Every workout, every race we sign up, you sign up for a race, when you sign up for Wisconsin, it was like, do you want to share this on Facebook? Yeah. Right. It's all marketing, right? They want you to show it on Facebook to make you feel proud, but also so someone else might see it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times as a coach when Ironman, because we all get the same emails, right? When Ironman sends out, all right, last call, 10% slots left for Chattanooga 70.3, within 30 minutes of it going out, you get 5, 10 emails, text messages. You think I should do Chattanooga 70.3? I'm like, when you woke up this morning, you didn't have that thought, right? And I'm talking to, a former, professional like this. You were advertising guru, like that was your thing. Like, so how this stuff works and how quickly we can deviate from our own plan, from an email or a text message or, a shot, something on an Instagram feed, or you see your buddy in the Tri Club is, he so-and-so registered for Maine 70.3, and you're like, all right. Let's see. My August is booked, and it really sounds irresponsible. But you know what? Fuck it, I'm in. YOLO, and you sign up, and you're in. Like how quickly we deviate and change from things that at one time made sense, right? And again, because I think it's harder. Yeah, I think it is the fact that we have become a little bit weaker in our own ways, that we're always kind of in a reaction zone with training, and there's so many different softwares and testing. I was going to go on testing. There's we've whittled our way down from, because talking about complacency and then the year and getting better, you want to find out where you are, right? And a lot of athletes, if you've worked out November, December, at least to a reasonable extent, you should have enough of a fitness level to do some sort of testing, whether it's aerobic testing or threshold testing or a battery of tests. Looking at where you stand, in a bunch of different ways on the bike and on the run. And the gold standard was 60-minute all out. But as triathletes go and cyclists go, and I think our race, our human race has become, can we get this down to a minute? Really, like, I don't really care if the exactness of the test and the zones it gives me is correct. I just don't want to do 60 minutes, man. 30? Nah. 20? I don't know that I can do that. Give me 8. Because like the 8-minute ramp test, which gives you not good numbers. I'm just gonna tell you right now, it does not give you very good numbers. It's 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes. It's for me, you pick those when you're not willing to go to the well, which is a huge part of training and endurance sports. Mm-hmm. So we always try to get things like lower and lower. And I'm sure next year it'll be like, the 4-minute ramp test. We'll give you Watson, our, artificial intelligence will tell you what your zone's like. That's not how any of it works. Like, that's why you see zero professionals, high-end runners, cyclists, none of them use that. They like, you know what? If you want to get better, you use the stuff that might not be comfortable, but that's what you need to go with. So again, I wanted to go with those 2 quotes. I wove in my shot at the ramp test, but I figured you could take it from here.
Whenever I think an 8-minute ramp test, I'm thinking, man, I'll do that when I'm just fired up and like I just get there, because I can do anything hard for 8 minutes. And will that be an accurate representation of my overall? I don't know. It's interesting.
No,
so like 8-minute abs.
They've only created it because as humans, we've just become so mentally weak that we can't hold it for 20 minutes. That's it. That's just advertising. It's not the best way. It's just, you know what? We recognize, same thing with hacks. The reason hacks are so popular is because everyone does a hack. They figure it doesn't work, so they jump to a different hack because everyone wants a shortcut. So in order to appease the masses and to market and make money, they're like, all right, we have recognized that people really don't want to. They never wanted to do 60, but people did it anyway. They definitely don't want to do 30. They sure as hell don't want to do 20 anymore, it seems like. So let's give them 8. And even though it might not be totally accurate, it's probably going to be way too inflated or way too low. But we recognize that as a species, we are becoming so emotionally and mentally weak that we've got to make it 8 minutes. And that's just what we should do.
Yeah. It's funny, man. I think that you almost should do the hard things when you're in your worst spot. And because I just say that because it's so easy to do harder things when you're feeling good or whatever. But if you can kind of master how to get to a point where you need to push through stuff, I think that is the sort of the unwritten law of being good at triathlon, is to be able to perform when you're not at your best. And it's kind of interesting, because like what good would it do is if like one day out of 7 that you're feeling great, that you're going to set your numbers or whatever. I was watching this guy interviewed. He's a businessman, but he's kind of jacked. Well, he's not kind of, he's super jacked, and he just sits there in a tank top, and he's a very smart guy, but he's getting interviewed by this tech guy, and kind of skinny, whatever. He goes, hey, I'm just curious. They were talking about business mostly, but he goes, what do you do to get, your body and your 8 minute, or you're not an 8 minute. He goes, your abs so ripped. And he's like, dude, you got a nice frame. He goes, really? Just matter of factly, he goes, it's all about diet to get 6-pack or whatever. He goes, if you go kind of at a caloric deficit and you do heavy stuff and you get a good bunch of protein in there and you work for like, I don't know, a year, you could have really nice frame going. He just threw it out a year. And I just thought that was the coolest shit, because you can't, like, I don't think anything really sticks. And that was the other thing he said. He's like, and because he was asking, is it hard to maintain that body? And he goes, he looked at him, he goes, is it hard to maintain your body? And the guy goes, no, I just do the same thing. And he goes, yeah, that's about what I do. I just kind of burned it into my system so that now it just is normal. And my body also has adapted to the point where it doesn't want to lose it or whatever. So I don't know, there's all these physiology things, but it's real interesting too, because I've been reading that, and I'm a big Goggins fan. And I think that the reason I like him so much is because not like I want to be him, because it's just silly to think about some of the stuff he does, but there's lessons in there. And of course, that's his whole point. Like last night I was reading about the part where, and this is an interesting thing I've been trying to do with myself. Certain days you don't feel it or whatever. And that's like the main theme of his whole deal, is like he talks about how when he's really struggling, he's David Goggins, and then he just kind of turns himself into Goggins. He's got a new, like a character that he created for himself that's going to push through, and the times that are tough, he just kind of closes his eyes and sits there for a minute and then figures it out and then turns into somebody, just finds a way to dig deeper, find a different well. And I think that like the reason I bring that up is because of that, comparison, the complacency thing. It's so easy to kind of fall into our woe is me, or the shell of ourselves, rather than to figure out how to mentally trigger that. And of course, that's a big part of his deal, is the mental connections and building the hard brain and stuff like that. But I just find it interesting because we do see things and it sort of like triggers us to go certain directions, whether it's like signing up for a race, but then being fired up for 2 days and then all of a sudden having to do the work. And then it's like, what are you going to do now? You compared to yourself, but now it really all comes back to you and how you're interpreting things, and how are you going to get better, and how are you going to push yourself harder within, we can talk within an 8-minute ramp test or 20 or 60 or whatever. What do you know is best for you, or what's going to be hard and what's going to make a difference in the long run.
What is going to make a difference in the long run? Right. And I think that's everyone's focus, but then you lose sight of it the first minute you step out the door.
Yeah.
Right. Like, triathletes are, and endurance athletes in general, regardless of the distance, I think we all battle these two internal demons every time we step out the door to run, every time we hop in the pool, every time we go to ride, every time we look at your training, is we battle these two heads, right? Insecurity, I won't be good enough or fast enough, with my ego, right? And I think a lot of people go through different phases with where one is really like the dominant, talking point or voice, right, in your head. I think everybody has it, right? I don't think I'm going to be good enough. And your ego, and then you want to protect your ego, and you do certain things or don't do certain things. You stop training to protect your ego, right? Because my ego says they think I can do this, my first sprint or my first 70.3 in 8 months, and then as you get closer to time, you've had some injuries, you've had some niggles or time off, or you've been unmotivated, and so instead of like doing the best you can, you protect your ego by doing nothing, right? Just do it next year, right? Or your ego is talking too much, but it's also your insecurities where like, yeah, I know coach said 4 hours, but I got to imagine if he said 4.6 is definitely better, right? Like I've got to do at least 7 120-mile bike rides before my full. I've got to run at least 3 marathons before running an interval. Like that's your insecurity talking. That's 100% insecurity. And the fact of the matter is the right answer usually falls somewhere in the middle, right? Between both your ego and your insecurity, right? And you talked about, testing and doing your best regardless. I had this exact conversation with myself this morning. I'm putting myself through a run testing kind of protocol that expands over 2 days with 4 different intervals. And you're not supposed to do one of them when it's windy, just because it affects your pace. But I live in fucking Kansas, so it's never not windy. So instead of not doing it this morning, what I told myself was, you know what? It's going to be even more accurate because it is windy. Because for the most part, every day I wake up here, it's windy. Like it's just a fact. It's going to be, 10 to 12 minutes. So no matter what, it's going to be windy. And I did my first interval, and then head down to the trail, did my longer interval. And about halfway through the longer interval, I had this kind of like very quick conversation with myself. That again, I think we all have these like mini conversations in our head, which I think is like our insecurity and our ego both kind of bubbling up at the same time. They're short, they're sometimes hopefully sweet, but I think they're very telling. And because I'm usually very, very, very good at feeling my body and what I think I can do for a certain amount of time. And I had this certain amount of time I was doing it, and I kind of told myself, I was like, you know what? I bet you I'll probably end up around a 6:30. I'll probably somewhere around there will be the effort for the duration of the interval, around just because what I know about my own training and where I am is like that's probably where I'll be. It wasn't I hope I'll be. It was I kind of figure out I'll probably be. And so then I covered up my watch and I go through and I'm on a trail that I'm super used to, and so I kind of know where I am and how much longer I have left. And I was super uncomfortable. I was like, this sucks. This blows. Why am I doing this right now to myself at 5:35 in the morning in the pitch black and 30-degree weather? And then I asked myself a simple question. And I don't honestly know where it probably came from the podcast, but from this one. And I said to myself, what's better, your best time or your best effort? And I gravitated immediately to my best effort because it means more. Right, because best time is to me. If I said, "Oh, best time," then I'm more likely to look at my watch and see if I'm on pace. And what if I'm doing 6:45s? I'm not going to get 6:30s. You know what? I'll probably just cool it down in the house, and I'll probably try to do it tomorrow. It's probably not going to, it's not my day. But instead, I pick for whatever reason, and I'll always pick this. Right, I'm just like everyone else. And I thought to myself, best effort, something you finish and be proud of. Right. Not because you did the time that makes you happy, right? But because what your effort, right, is, in my opinion, your effort tells more about who you are and where you are than your time. Always has, always will. Because a time is so it takes in so many things into account, right? Your mood, your caffeine, your sleep, your stress, the environment, the wind, the temperature, the dew point, the humidity, all these things, everything, right? But your effort, irregardless of how you mix and match and remove, raise the dew point, lower the dew point, raise the temperature, lower the temperature, add in wind, don't put in, better sleep, not a good sleep. What you can kind of hang your hat on is, man, I'm proud of myself today, right? Proud of yourself for the effort, proud of yourself for a time. Usually it's proud of yourself for an effort. I got done and I was gassed. Consequently, I was at 6:28, so I wasn't too far off. But the point being is that I was more concerned with executing to the best of my ability, because what I did know was, regardless of what the result was, as long as I gave my best effort on the day, as long as I don't overanalyze it away for various reasons, like most people overanalyze to get an answer they don't want, or that makes them feel better than the one they did get, is this going to get me in a better place today to be better in 12 weeks? The answer was yes. So I was very, very happy with it. And I think we get so stuck, right, in making things perfect, right? Hey, sorry, coach. I did my workout today, but it didn't include the 200 kick that I did. All right, like that has zero effect on the workout itself, right? We get so obsessed with perfection that it gets in one of our phrases we've always used on this podcast is progress, not perfection. Because the fact of the matter is that the obsession of perfection always gets in the way of progress. Mm-hmm. Always. Right? Our obsession with perfection and doing and having it perfect, or I thought it was going to be a chance of rain today, so I swapped my weekend up. What? We know the weather. It's always wrong. Yet when we want to, when it feels right to us, we rearrange our entire schedule based on the weather, right? Even though we all the time say, you can't trust the weather. Weather people always get it wrong. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm just going to swap things because the weather looks a little bit iffy, right? Instead of just doing it and just rolling the dice, seeing what happens, right? Again, like early in the week, talked about being flexible, right? And it's just there's a fine line in progress and perfection and just do it. Honestly, just doing your best. That's it. Because we had a lot of athletes do a battery of tests early this week. If I thought they were in good enough shape to do a test, which is another big thing. Like you have to be in decent enough shape to do a test, because most people come off in November, December just totally detrained, right? So their heart rate spikes up after 5 minutes. They can't hold things very longer. And then in about 3 weeks, it'll normalize and back to normal. But it's this is where I was compared to last year, or this is a very new test for me because I've always done the 8-minute ramp test. This was a lot telling, very, very telling. And then, you had some people it's an increase and I'll take it. Or, I'm a year older, I'm 62 and, I stayed about the same. So that's an improvement because I'm all about not getting slower. Right. And then you had some people man, this is really devastating. And, this is disappointing, and I'm well, you didn't really do shit November, December. So it's not disappointing. It's just where we are. Yeah. That's just it. It's just where we are. It's just like a bad day doesn't define a horrible life.
Yeah.
Even a bad year doesn't define a horrible life.
Right.
Right. And I think that's just a really important perspective for us all to understand as we get going through this year, that it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And honestly, I think it makes the journey that much more rewarding.
Yeah. Be like a good cornerback and have a short memory on stuff and just go forward. I love what you're saying about the effort, because, you can really put effort in the bank. That's something that you get done with and you can do if you can do it, but if you don't hit a certain time, or if you do hit, it's like you can have a great, time today, but go to 2 days later and not have it or whatever. But if you can still give the effort, that's something you can bank on. And I was thinking, I always remember I think her name is Amelia Boone, the ultra racer.
I already know Spartan. Yeah, she's the 4-time Spartan champion, I think. Spartan Ultra 100 champ. She's a champ of a lot. I know exactly what you're about to say.
Yeah, I'll never forget this quote. It's she wakes up and she looks for the worst time of the day, weather-wise, to train. And I just always resonated with that. Of course it takes some flexibility, obviously, but the idea of finding tough, and I started thinking when you were talking about the wind, because, that's what it is, man. I'm just like, that effort, you put it in the bank and you learn how to do stuff like that. And really, I mean, if you think about what, me and everyone else went through at Wisconsin this year, there wasn't much going on there about speed. That was all effort day. And I was thinking back to, a lot of times because I still do this when I like to look outside and go, damn, it's raining. And I'm like, all right, I'm going. And I expose myself to not all the time, and it wasn't perfect or anything like that, but also I had a religious pattern going. Whenever I swam, I got in the sauna, and I was swimming a lot, and I get in the sauna and melt out for like 20-ish minutes, and then I would always take a cold shower. And I had that routine going most of the time I was training. And I've just questioned once in a while. I've wondered if that was part of maybe what helped a little bit, because every time I'm in that sauna and I'm like sitting there going, man, it's hot, but it feels damn good. And I'm like, maybe I'll skip that cold shower today. And every time I'd go in and do it, I just stand there while I turned the water on, and I'd accept what that thing gave me, and just sitting there for like 5 minutes. And I do think that that's a huge part of this triathlon stuff, is just being able to face things like that on purpose when you don't have to. And because like when you get up to a race like we did, and when it was just raining from the beginning and windy and it was shit out and nobody even wanted to do it, that thing became 100% mental almost. And if you can't, like sort of hone those skills, hone the effort skill, that's a tough one, man. And I think about like year to year comparisons, and I try to think back to how fast, I was a lot faster, obviously, when we were working out a lot more together in the early days and shit like that. And I always think about my speed, and I'm like, that's on me, man. It's like, it's pretty clear that I just haven't been consistent. I haven't kept showing up, and I can't expect myself to be there right now. I don't even think about that. I just think about building back up, and if I'm serious about doing what I want to do this year, and that has nothing to do with the goal pace right now at any of my races. It's just about doing the best I can with it and getting back, to my potential. And that's a tough road, man. I mean, like, it's one thing, you should have goals and have them in there, but you have to accept where you're at. And then, it's almost like micro goals we talked about on several podcasts, but just get a little bit, like back to the last podcast, get a little bit better each day. And you got to be patient and just keep going and do hard things.
One of the biggest takeaways, I think, for most athletes and most people is that, again, it's always like a great topic this time of year, I think, is that you don't have to win the year today.
Yeah.
Right.
You're also not racing today.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit here, a little bit there. That's it. Right. I mean, that's it, and it's really isn't, it's just consistency, right? Consistency, availability, sustainability. That it really is like, yeah, things need to be specific, but every single minute and day counts, right? But none of them count for more than others. They all matter, right? They all matter, right? So you have to take that into, whether you believe it or not, you will not win or lose the year today or tomorrow or the next day, right? It's cumulative, right? It all adds up, right? If you've got 55 wins and 54 losses, guess what? You're winning, right? Doesn't matter how many losses. As long as you win more than you lose, and even if you lose a lot, find a way to feel like it's a win, right? Yeah, well, I did this and that made me feel good. So the whole year wasn't a loss, right? I did this, and then take it and learn from it and be better or do better or hopefully get better luck, one way or the other. But it's a very hard for athletes that, again, going into the challenges of who we are now as a society, and that's just become woven into everything, is that we want it all right now. I could drive to Target, right, or the mom and pops from the street and buy local, but I could just click here and get it to Amazon later today. Even when it's more expensive, whatever. I don't leave the house. We want everything, right? We want answers right now, right? We don't want to think. We want everything right now, all the time. We want results right now. We want everything. We want to see where we're at. We want to know where we're going immediately, and definitively. What do you think I'm capable of, coach? Barking up the wrong tree. Never going to tell you. Honestly, because I haven't even thought about it. I just want to know how I think we're going to get better next week or the next week or the next week, right? Because things are always changing. You're always changing. Stress is always changing. I had an athlete who did really, really well, I thought, on a test the other day, and they're like, so what's and they asked, what is a good number for an athlete of my age and my experience as a female? And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me right now. You really think I'm going to answer that question? Because honestly, there is no answer. But you Google, what is an acceptable blank, blank, blank for this? As if Google knows all, right? That's just it. It was, I joked I think it was a year ago. It was Hayden was asking what one of his daycare teachers was at the Y, and he was like, "Well, what's Mr. Reggie's phone number?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he was like, "Well, look it up, Google it." And I was like, "That's not how it works." I'm sure you could if you deep dive, really wanted to obsessively track somebody. You can't do it. It doesn't work that way. But we all want things right now, immediately. We have totally lost, even when it comes to streaming services, right? All 8 episodes didn't come out at one time. Did you see that? I can't just watch them all at once. They're only going to do 1 a week. And then we have to wait to the next week and the next week. We want everything in total right now. People even want answers to where they're going to be in 8 months, what they're capable of in 8 months. What do you think their time's going to be in 10 months? What? First of all, no one can predict that. And if they tell you they can, they're full of shit. But why do you even want to know? Why do you want to know? What's the point, right? I think there was a research paper I read a few years back about, if you it was a poll, and then it was psychological testing on if you really wanted to know that the day you were going to die, right? Mm-hmm. And if it would change things, and I think it was 80-something% people said no, they don't want to know. I want to know. I want to know what I can do. I want to know how much time I have left. Really? You can do all those things anyway, right? And live your lives to your fullest extent. But as athletes, we feel like we have to know everything. And I think a lot of it is just to protect ourselves, right, or motivate ourselves from what we believe or what we doubt. But the huge benefit of any endurance endeavor is the unknown, right? I don't know how much better I can get. When, right? There is no ceiling, because if it hasn't become, more evident in the last, 3 to 4 or 5 years with all these insane athletic achievements, we've been sandbagging. The species has been sandbagging, right? From sub 2 hour marathons to 7:30s in Kona to, breaking the mile. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? Unfathomable things done by people just like you and me. Oh, well, no, they're special. They have the special genetics and DNA. What they have is consistency and hard work and kind of a naive belief that they can really do whatever the fuck they want to do. Yeah. Which I appreciate and love, because we should all have that. It's not bravado. It's not, a cockiness. I think it's a confidence you have to have in order to get the most out of yourself. And so if you're that person that continuously talks down to themselves, you've talked yourself into your lack of ability. You weren't born with a lack. You've talked yourself into the lack. I can't be consistent. Nope, not. But if you keep saying I can't be consistent, you won't be, right? I'll never be a good cyclist. I'm not good at hills. I can't do open water. No, you can't, because you just told me you can't. So why are we here? What are we doing, right? Why are you even dabbling in
Yeah.
triathlon? Why don't you just do duathlon? Make a choice, right? To be better and do better. That is a choice. We again, I would say every single person listening to this podcast, even, outside of maybe like one person, you're not even close to reaching your potential. Me
Yeah.
and you included.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
we talk this all the time off the air. Me and you included. We're not even close. And I think that's, on one end, kind of discouraging, disappointing, because you're both getting older. But at the same time, I love it because it gives you hope and excitement that there's more out there. There's more I can do. And the more that, if, again, big if, capital IF here, guys, if I choose to put the work in and believe in myself and conquer my fears, I can do anything I want. And I believe that thought process is critical for happiness and longevity.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, man. I've always been a little bit on the, I don't know, say cocky, but like just you know what I mean, or just confident in for kind of no reason really, but it's sort of like I've always believed in having audacious goals. That because if you believe that you can do it, it's one thing to have them, but I like having audacious goals because it kind of like you said, it sets my mind in a place where I'm like, well, I know I still got this in me, but now it's up to, you got to do the work. And the cold hard secret for getting better in this, especially in this sport, well, anything really, is repetition. And I know deep down that that's where I struggle the most. I mean, there's been periods in my life when I have done the repetition and seen the progress. And even in triathlon, there's been, stages of this training where I'm like, okay, there it is. Now just keep going. And then it's like, I think I'm close enough, or, whatever it might be. And then you get done with the race, and then it's like you can take a deep breath. I've finished. I did it. I didn't do what I thought I might do, but having a crazy goal, it's sort of like shooting for the stars and landing on the moon or whatever they say. It's kind of like that. I mean, that's sort of how I always approached it. I kind of think to myself, okay, if everything went right and I did everything I'm supposed to do, what do I think I could really do? And that's how sort of what leads my, that's my North Star a lot of times. And most of the time I don't do what needs to be done. So I can't, bitch about that because I know I'm not doing the work. And that's, you said it, 90%, more than that, probably almost 100% of people listening to this can say the same thing. They do, even if they're very consistent, are they putting in the right reps? Are they doing the right things over and over and getting better at it? Because, as I talked about many times, when I started drumming, the whole thing about drumming is just repetition. You have to go through slowly these progressions and just nail them until you can own it, and then you can go to the next level. So many of us try to go skip stages, skip levels, in this sport too. It's like, okay, every once in a while I can hit this top speed, so I should be able to try that, now or whatever, So to me, that's the whole thing, right? And that's why I get into these ideas of the mental side of how do we get there every day. You talk about winning today won't win the year, but win today. And like you're saying, figure out a way to make this day progress, and that can be even if you have the worst, shittiest day ever, and then somehow you get on the trainer for 30 minutes, that's a win. And then you organize your merchandise in the basement, that's a win. So I guess yesterday was kind of one of those days for me, but it was tough getting on, but I got on it. I did a little something that needed to be done. I'm in a spot right now where I'm just trying to get my body back into, I didn't fall completely off the rails, but we talk about train so you can train like you need to train, and I can't train like I need to train right now. So I'm accepting it and just going through the proper channels and stages to get there.
I think there's a fine line, and this again goes for you too, is there's a fine line in using belief as a power or as a crutch. Right. And you're, kind of like before you started talking a second ago, you were talking about, I don't know if it's cockiness or whatever. It's just, you have an undeniable, very concrete self-belief, sometimes warranted, sometimes not warranted. Right.
I agree.
But agree. But like, I'd argue that you finished Ironman Wisconsin 100% because of your belief in yourself that you can finish whatever you want to. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I'm trained. You could have woke up that day with very zero training, like, yeah, I can do this. Right. And you had people out there who were way fitter that folded. Right. But you believed that you could. Right. But on the same end, we also use belief as a crutch, as a way to take a shortcut. Right. Yeah. It's like, it's probably enough. Yeah, but I can do that because I'm kind of natural, or I think I can get this way through. So because belief can only get you so far, right, from a fast standpoint, but it can come a long way in the tough, in the tough department. So where you have to kind of find that line is I got to still do all the small things, right, and believe in the process and what works, and then because I don't want to use my belief, right, to that extent as my number one tool. Right, as my number one go-to on race day. Right. I need to use it when times get tough, right, or things don't go my way, right, or I'm having a rough patch, or I'm having the race of my life, right, and I throw caution to the wind and just fucking go for it. That's when you got to use it. We can't use it as a crutch. It's like like you said, man, that's probably good enough, right? So I think it's a really fine line, and I think self-belief is what we always have to have, but that's also a way we talk ourselves out of doing things or doing more, is because I'm pretty sure I can do that. I mean, I always have, I got it. But then we underachieve, right? We have never combine, fitness, great training, and belief, because it's like the higher percentage your belief comes in, honestly, the less. The farther you are away from your best performance, right? Because belief only gets you so far. It can get you the tough times, storms, the Ironman Wisconsin, the Ironman Louisville's we talk about, Coeur d'Alene, the really, really bad days. It's very little about fitness, right? It's about toughness and resiliency and this kind of like, what? I got this, right? Like, bring it on. Kind of like the Amelia Boone thing you're talking about is the shittier the weather, the better for me. Right. But just think if you can combine those together, how lethal your racing could be. So it is, it's a very, very, very fine line for us, I think, all to kind of follow.
Yeah, that's a really great way of saying it, man. Because it is easy to kind of fall back on your laurels and your belief system. We had, it was December rules last month. And one of the things was, connect with a friend that you haven't seen in a while. And we had, Emily and I had, Glenn and Lita came up and they're like, hey, let's just get together and go for a swim and grab some lunch.
Let's go swim.
And they've been swimming a lot. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And they had all the workout all lined up. But I hadn't really been swimming much in the last month and a half. I mean, getting in there for 500-600, like I was talking about, like I always think, that's six football fields. If I told that to my buddies, they'd be like, damn, you're crazy. But it's really nothing in the scheme of things. And they got in there and I tried to hang for a little while and absolutely got toasted with a slap in the face wake up call. And that was the best thing that ever happened. So sometimes, that's the other thing, right? Like we get into our isolating worlds and we talk about how valuable it can be to go out with people and train with people better than you or in a better spot than you. And how I really always used to kind of try to ride with good cyclists and run with runners and swim with swimmers as much as I could, because they kind of put you in your place. You can have a lot of confidence, but get out there and, run with a guy like we used to hang around with Lee Wilson, who ran at Oregon, and just naturally just stride and kind of talk to you the whole time when you're just sucking gas. So those kind of things really kind of wake you up and give you the, it's like have confidence, but go challenge it. That's one of the things that I need to do more, I think, because it's easy to get in your bubble and think, well, I'm doing all right. I think I got this under control. But if you see it, that's, a lot of times people don't really see how they stack up until they get to a race. They don't go out and work out with people that are better than them or faster than them and kind of get that sort of, man, maybe I'm not, as badass as I thought I was kind of thing until race day. And then it can really get in your head if you're, if you have, the doubts creep in and things like that. That's the last place you want to get, dropped at mile 20 of an Ironman by somebody you thought you were equal with, and they're gone for the day.
Yeah, but belief should be like tapped into when it's time to troubleshoot.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's a tool that you can keep.
Exactly. Right. It's a tool. And so, it is, I just think it's really important, for, I think the simplicity of goals and resolutions and how we measure progress, sometimes it should be simple, but it's kind of put in the wrong bucket, right? Of how we measure things, belief and heart rate and, power or, consistency, and one of the best things you can do for you is kind of take away you have to measure things, but you want to measure them over time, not each day, right? To dictate what's getting better, right? The coaches, I tell athletes all the time, every day is a test. Every day, every single day is a test.
Yeah.
Everything you do is a test. And it's not pass or fail. It's just learning. It's just learning, right? You learn about athletes, both physically, emotionally, and one of the biggest, I think, underrated aspects of coaching and athletes is just paying attention, right? Because every day and everything you do is a test, right? And how you respond, how you act. Did you do the workout? Did you not? Those are all tests. They're not pass or fails. It's just opportunity for learning, right? To see if we're heading in the right direction, to see if what we're doing is working, to see if you're dialed in. To me, I can almost, I would say over the course of my coaching career, 99 out of 100 times when I've assumed an athlete is depressed, I've been correct. 100%. Like example, just this last week, reading through some athletes' comments, even though they started working out some, very, very different tone, right? Something that we've had to all become very aware of in the last, 10 years is tone in text messages or because it's really not tone, right? It's behavior patterns and patterns in general, which is, again, what you do with training and what you observe is you observe patterns, right? Are we getting, lower heart rate, faster pace? It's all patterns, right? Physical patterns, emotional, mental patterns. And I just sent a text and I said, tell me how you're doing. And they were like, do you want the long version or the short version? And I already knew. And I said, are you depressed? And they said, yeah, I think a little bit. And then went on this huge, information, giving me information. And I was like, yeah, I get that. It's not that they had a red light went off in Training Peaks or they're on Facebook that was like, this is, well, yeah. So a lot of times it is reading tea leaves on Facebook. And this is coming from a guy, because I know I used to do that before I got sober. It is being able to tell when people are sad or down or distant, as you get to tell them their mood. Are they grumpy? Is their attitude, or is their pace great? Is their pace terrible? Everything is a test, right? And not that it's a pass or fail, but it's all an opportunity to learn, to gather information and then to make an informed decision. That's it. And so putting all of your stock in your best race or your worst race, your best test, your worst test, it's meaningless. I mean, I woke up to a text Wednesday morning. Hey, coach, did my test last night and I just fucking bombed it. He was like, just wanted to rant, don't need a response. Just want to tell you, so I'm not going to go with the results. And I was like, I'm not either. You've had basically perfect results the last 3 years. You're due for one. Moving on. That's it. That is it. And so I think we all have to remember, that kind of like we said, 30 minutes ago, is you're not going to win the year today. You're not going to lose it today. Right? Everything has a purpose and everything matters. If you have a loss, learn from it. Don't do it again tomorrow. Right? If you woke up and you slept, and you had a terrible run and you recognize it because you slept 6 hours, then sleep more. Right? Make those choices and make those deviations. It's just and kind of gather your toolbox together and keep things simple, but judge the things that are simplistic and that have that aren't so data driven. Did I work hard today? Yep. Did I put for a lot of effort today? Yep. Did I stay present? Yep. Did I do the best that I could? Yep. Did I keep the spirit of the workout? Yep. All wins. Not, well, I thought I was going to do 850 days and I did 859. So I'm really not sure what's going on. I mean, what? But that's how people judge it, right? Because, well, in order to be on track for, this, and this, I really need to do this. Like, no, that's not how it works. You got to really just take each day, learn each day, and move on. And that it's really hard to do. And I think that is again like what I think a lot of people get coaches is because it's hard to see that from your own eyes, kind of looking at things objectively. It's a very, very challenging thing to do. But if you really, really, really know yourself and believe that, then you can do it well. But a lot of time, it's just really, really hard to be objective, and to not get distracted with all the the bells and whistles of life that really end up making no music at all.
That was good, man. It's funny. What?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say something about text messaging and how, picking up the tone, and it is a weird thing, right? Sometimes you're like, wait, are they something wrong over there? That's why if I'm ever down in the dumps, I just use a lot of exclamation points to fool people.
Is that your equivalent of the motivational image and quote on Facebook?
Yeah. Oh man.
Okay, so all right, so noted.
You used to be good at that.
That used to be my jam, dude.
Oh, yeah, I still remember one was a really great one. You were talking about, I can't remember. I think you were talking about people being depressed or down, and if you ever get down in the dumps, it's like one thing you could do is put your hand on your chest. You feel that thing beating. One day it's gonna stop. Wow, that is good. I don't know if you might have not been down that day, but that was a good one.
Oh, yeah, I might not have been down, but I was probably drunk. I mean, I was thinking a bit. Yeah, because that's
it was noon.
Funny, like yeah, I mean, you were saying maybe I was like checking myself to make sure I was still alive.
Yeah, right.
Because that's how bad I was off. Like shit, 10 years ago, I was. I mean, you say triathlon, saved your life. Triathlon kept me alive the last year and a half before I got sober. Yeah, that was my thing, man. The more depressed and I probably cried all night in my bed alone, drinking a ton. You know what's going to sound good today? Little motivational quote for the people. And that'll it means nothing. It really doesn't. It's social media is so asinine in so many ways. Before we close it down, I wanted to go back quickly on one of the more important things we've ever talked about on this podcast, and it was the word drip. We've had a lot of feedback in our Facebook group about our slang term grip. So today I wanted to revisit and talk about the word bussin'. Bussin'. Yeah, bussin' is a slang term, and it is cover your ears. I've already dropped some bombs on the podcast, but bussin' is an adjective used when something is so fucking good. Usually people say bussin', they're talking about food.
Right. Example,
is it bussin', Janelle? Who comes up with this shit? Bussin'. Dude, that ribeye was bussin'. I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I think it's fascinating that we can just kind of make up two things that I find just fascinating about words in general. One, we can make up words that people can't say. Right? Like shit and fuck and all those words. You're not supposed to say those. They're bad words. We make up words you can't say, but we also just make up words out of nowhere, like bussin' or drip, right?
Yeah.
So bussin' is, I hope, man, that new EFS flavor, sour watermelon, was bussin'.
Yeah. Man, I just think it's because there's so many, with the internet out there and people seeing stuff all the time. I think people are just getting bored with normal words. I remember when awesome came around, I thought that was the most unbelievable thing ever, back in the day. And it took a while for that thing to burn out. It's still around. It kind of held its ground. Awesome is still a good word. And I was talking about how how distracted and bored we are these days, or how easy it is to get bored or oversaturated with information and all that kind of stuff. I was laughing with my mom about it. We were up on New Year's at the cottage, and I was like, you remember back in the day, man, it used to be like people would get up and be sipping coffee, and their conversation would be like, did you see Julie down the street? They moved their bird feeder. Yeah, that was like interesting shit back then.
What do you think that's about? I wonder if they're changing
like, and then you go peek out the window and see, yeah, it is moved. It's used to be over by the mailbox, and now it's down by the whatever. And it was like that was the conversation.
Yep.
The simplest shit was so interesting, and now it's like we got to create new words. Like I don't know,
like bussing.
Like
I mean,
bussing.
It really is. It's like now a conversation is like, man, did you go to the church potluck last week? Yeah, I went. Did you notice that Sharon changed the recipe on her casserole?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
She's not put cornflakes in anymore. I mean, that casserole used to be bussin'.
Yeah.
And now it's just whack. And
yeah.
That's where we are right now as a society, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
I'm going to make a prediction. I think drip sticks. I think bussin' won't last.
No, but bussin's not going to last.
It's a soft
I'm
word.
pretty sure. I mean, again, like we've had a lot of, our clientele for this podcast is people, in their 30s to 60s with a lot of them have kids, and they were able to use the drip over the holiday break with their kids, and they got a lot of eye rolls. But listen, there's nothing better than an eye roll from your kid. I'm starting to get them now with some of my dad jokes. So yeah, drop in the word bussin'. Hey man, you think. Jenny, back home from college, you did a great job with that Easy Mac. It was bussing. Excuse me, you can't put a G.
I was going to say
bussing.
That's like chilling.
It's
you can't do that. I'm chilling today.
I'm chilling today.
Come on, man.
Yeah, we are not.
No G's. G's aren't
this
even.
Podcast, at least the ending was not dope, but maybe you enjoyed it. We enjoyed you. We always do. We enjoy doing it. We love it. We love you guys. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for coaching for this year in in a variety of ways, whether it's a training plan from us or coaching, reach out to one of the coaches. If you need anything from Mike specifically, he's at CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, G.
I'm going to go get my lunch. It better be bussin'.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
See ya.